My own son and his wife were caught on camera using my credit card to buy expensive clothes while I was sleeping in my bed. I'm Eleanor, a 70-year-old widow who always believed in the kindness of family. They called me paranoid for protecting my money, but what they didn't know was that I would prove their betrayal in a very public and devastating way. He burst through the front door. The hinges groaned loudly. It was 2 in the afternoon, and I was just folding laundry. His voice was full of a rage I'd never heard before, and it honestly terrified me. He said I humiliated Jessica at the grocery store. My quiet life was shattered in that moment. I looked at the armchair where I had breastfed him years ago. That chair is a reminder of a better time. It felt like a stranger was in my living room. I never thought I'd be sharing a story like this. It's hard. But if you're out there and you get it, can you please subscribe? It would mean the world to me to know my voice reached you. Tell me in the comments where you are. I stood there, still and calm, even though my heart was pounding. I changed the password because it's my money, I told him. He looked at me shocked. He wasn't used to me saying no. The first time I met Jessica, she looked at me like I was just something in her way. I had just reviewed my bank statements and found so many expenses I didn't recognize. My credit card was no longer just a way to pay for groceries. It had become a weapon in their hands. I had to take back control. They didn't like what I said. David got so loud. "You're acting like a miser," he yelled. "You've been so generous, and now you're being selfish." The word miser hurt so much. I'd worked double shifts for years after his father died. I gave everything for him. He and Jessica kept saying, "We're family, we're family." But I knew my credit card wasn't a symbol of trust anymore. It was a tool they used to get my money. It wasn't about family. It was about their wants. I was trembling. My hands were shaking. The word miser just hung in the air. It hurt more than anything he could have yelled. I sat down in my armchair, the one where I breastfed him as a baby. I remembered how I worked double shifts, all for him. I gave everything to pay for his college, but his face was so cold. When he and Jessica finally left, the silence in the house was different. It was heavy. My credit card was supposed to be my dignity, my way of standing on my own, but they had turned it into a weapon. He looked right at me, so cold. "You're going to regret it," he said. "This is going to affect our relationship." It wasn't a warning, it was a threat. He was using the one thing that mattered most to me, our bond, against me. He was standing in my home, the home where I raised him, and he was using our connection as a weapon. They didn't see my credit card as a symbol of my dignity anymore. It was just a way to get what they wanted. When they left, the silence in the house was so heavy. It felt like the air itself had changed. He closed the door softly this time, no slamming. It was worse. The quiet was so heavy. It felt different. My hands were shaking. I just went and sat back down in my armchair. I needed to sit. It was in that moment that I finally understood. It wasn't about the password. It was about me saying no. I had dared to set a boundary. My credit card wasn't just my dignity anymore. It was their weapon. For the first time in years, I had taken a stand. The phone rang once, then twice. I didn't want to answer it. My hands were still shaking from what had just happened. I just let the machine get it. Then I heard Jessica's voice. It was so shrill. "Eleanor, I hope you're happy with what you've done. David is devastated." There was no regret in her voice, no understanding, just more blame. She hung up and the quiet came back. It felt even heavier than before. My own home felt like a foreign place. The quiet was even heavier the next morning. It wasn't the peaceful quiet of my old life. I tried to do something normal, so I went to the kitchen and started peeling potatoes for a late lunch. Cooking always used to bring me peace, but not this time. My mind kept replaying David's face. The anger wasn't what hurt, it was the coldness. He looked at me as if I didn't have any worth anymore. The loving bond I thought we had was gone. It was just a transaction. My credit card wasn't my dignity anymore. It was their weapon. I thought back to my life before all this. After my husband Henry died, I raised David all on my own. It wasn't easy, but I did it out of love. I thought my life savings were a way to help him, to make his life better. My credit card was a symbol of my freedom and my hard work. I remember the first time I met Jessica. She looked at me from head to toe. It was a quick look, but it felt like she was sizing me up. I didn't think much of it then. I was just happy David was happy. I was so naive. Jessica was so charming at first. She'd come over and act so interested in me. She'd praise my cooking and talk about our family photos. I was so happy for David that I didn't see what was really happening. My credit card was a symbol of my hard-earned dignity, but I used it to help them. I just thought I was a good mother. I was so wrong. I was too trusting. It was all a way for her to get close to my money. It started with a small, innocent ask. Jessica called me, and her voice was so sweet. She asked if I could lend them some money, just $200 for apartment expenses. I gave it to them without thinking twice. Of course I would help my son. It's what mothers do. They promised to pay me back by Friday. My credit card was still a symbol of trust for me then. I had no idea that this small loan was just the beginning. I thought I was just being a good mother. Friday came and they didn't pay me back. I tried to push my worry away, but then another request came. They needed more money. It kept happening like this. They would call and ask and I would give. They promised they'd pay me soon, but they never did. My credit card felt different. It wasn't about trust anymore. It was becoming a weapon of control for them. I felt my hands shaking as I gave in again. I was starting to feel trapped. After 6 months of this, the loans were getting so big. When I brought it up, David got uncomfortable. But then Jessica, with that charming smile, stepped in. She said, "Why don't we give you my credit card as collateral?" It was a strange moment. I didn't want her card. I just wanted my money back. My own credit card, the one that used to feel like my independence, had become a way for them to control me. I knew it wasn't right, but I felt trapped. I took her card because I just didn't know how to say no to my own family. A week later, Jessica called. Her voice sounded so desperate. She said there was an emergency and her card was blocked. She needed my card, just for a day, to buy medicine for her mom. I still wanted to believe her. My hands were shaking when I handed my credit card to her. I wanted to think that this was still a matter of trust, but something felt wrong. I told myself it was just for one day. I didn't know that my card was no longer a symbol of my dignity. It was a weapon she had just taken from me. That night, I checked my statement online. My hands were shaking. I saw the $150 for the medicine, and for a second, I felt some relief. But right below it, I saw more. A charge for cosmetics, another for clothes, a big one at an expensive restaurant. It was a lie. When I confronted Jessica the next day, she started to cry and said she was so sorry. She said she couldn't pass up some incredible sales. It was all an act. My credit card was no longer a symbol of my dignity. It was a tool they were using against me. When I brought it up to David, he got so uncomfortable. He kept saying, "We're family. You know we'll pay you back." But he was nervous. Then he said, "I don't understand why you're so petty with us." That word hit me hard. Petty. I, who had worked double shifts for years and paid for his college, was now petty? That's when I knew this was bigger than I thought. My credit card wasn't a symbol of my dignity anymore. It was their way of controlling me. I felt like a stranger in my own home. My hands were shaking. I sat down in my armchair, the same one where I had breastfed him so long ago. My heart was broken. The Sunday lunches became so tense. They weren't fun anymore. All they would talk about was money and their struggles. Jessica would mention expensive clothes she needed for work. David would talk about wanting a nicer neighborhood. I just sat there, listening. I knew their words were just indirect pleas for more cash. My credit card wasn't a symbol of my dignity anymore. It was a tool they used against me. They were using my love for them to make me feel guilty. It was emotional blackmail. I was sitting in my armchair and I felt so helpless. I couldn't just sit there. One afternoon, I finally took out my bank statements and looked at them all. The numbers were so clear. My savings were disappearing so fast. I had lost so much money, all of it going to their fancy life. The fear I felt was so strong. This wasn't just about small loans. This was about my entire future. The quiet in the house felt heavy, like a threat. I knew I had to do something. My credit card was no longer my dignity. It was their weapon. I knew I had to do something. Then Jessica called again. Her voice was full of worry. She said David needed expensive antibiotics for an infection. It sounded like a real emergency. My hands were shaking, but I agreed to let her use my card. A short time later, my phone buzzed with a notification. It wasn't for a pharmacy. It was for a clothing store. I saw a huge charge. My heart just sank. I knew then that the emergency was a lie. They were just using my card again. My dignity felt gone. It was just a weapon they kept using. I knew my dignity was gone. My phone rang. It was the bank. They asked if I had made a huge purchase of $1,200 at an electronics store. My hands were shaking. I told them no, I did not. That was it. I was so tired of their lies and of my fear. I told the bank to block the card right then and there. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about me. My credit card was no longer a symbol of my dignity. It was a weapon they were using to ruin me, and I had to fight back. I hung up the phone. My hands were shaking, but I felt a new kind of calm. I had to know for sure. I went to my bedroom and opened the lockbox where I keep my important papers. There, at the bottom, was a copy of my credit card. My blood ran cold. It had Jessica's handwriting on it. That's when I finally knew. It wasn't a mistake or an accident. It was all planned. My card was never a symbol of my dignity to them. It was always a weapon to control me. The innocence I once had was gone. They showed up at my door, just walking right in with the key I gave them years ago. They started talking right away, telling me my money was for the family. It was a family card, they said. The words hit me hard. My credit card wasn't just my dignity anymore. It was a tool they were using to take away my freedom. They were in my house, my home, but they were acting like they owned it all. I felt a new kind of calm. I knew I had to fight them now. I put all the bank statements right there on the dining room table. Page after page of numbers. The proof was all there. I pointed at the papers. "Here," I said, "look at this." But they didn't. They wouldn't even come to the table. They wouldn't look at the truth. They just kept telling me I was wrong. It was clear they didn't care about the facts. The money was a weapon, and they had been using it against me for so long. They didn't want to admit it. They just wanted to keep on pretending.
They didn't look at the statements. David said they wanted a last chance. He wanted me to give them access to my card for 1 more month. If I was happy with how they used it, they'd never ask me for money again. Jessica nodded, acting so sincere. But I knew it wasn't a real offer. It was a demand. My credit card was a weapon, and they were just asking me to hand it back to them. They were trying to get my dignity back, but only so they could keep controlling me. I was sitting in my armchair and I felt trapped. I couldn't agree. He looked at me so cold. "We're going to take some time," he said. It wasn't a warning. It was a threat. He was using our bond against me like a weapon. He was standing in my home, the home where I raised him, and he was using our connection to hurt me. My credit card, which was once a symbol of my dignity, was just a tool they wanted to get my money. The silence after they left was so heavy. It was a threat. I was just having breakfast when I heard a knock on the door. It wasn't David. It was a young man in a suit. He told me he was a lawyer. He said my son, David, was worried about my mental health. He said David was trying to get legal control over my money. A guardianship lawsuit. My own son was trying to say I was crazy so he could take everything. My hands started shaking. The threat of my credit card being a weapon of control now felt like a very real war. I felt sick to my stomach. I was so scared after the lawyer left. I had to talk to someone. I called my neighbor, Helen. She listened so calmly. Then she said to me, "Eleanor, your instincts are right. A mother's instincts never lie." Her words gave me a new kind of strength. I sat down in my armchair and I finally understood. The son I raised was gone. My credit card was never a symbol of my dignity to them. It was a weapon. I finally saw the truth about my situation. I knew I had to fight. My neighbor Helen was right. She went with me to a law office. We met a lawyer named Arthur Bennett. He was an older man, and he was so calm. He told me he helped people my age against family financial abuse. My hands were shaking. When I handed him my bank statements, his calm voice gave me a new kind of strength. My credit card was no longer just their weapon. I knew it was now a tool to get justice. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had someone on my side.
Arthur got to work right away. He looked into everything. What he found was so much worse than I thought. It wasn't just my credit card they used. He said they had opened 3 more credit cards in my name. I didn't even know they existed. They had used them to run up another $15,000 in debt. My hands were shaking when he told me. It wasn't just about my dignity anymore. It was about my very existence being erased. This wasn't just about greed. It was a full-on attack. My home felt silent and heavy. They started a war. First, they called my phone over and over. Then I heard them on the street spreading rumors. I heard people calling me a crazy miser. My hands were shaking all the time. It felt like they were trying to ruin me. They wanted to make people think I was crazy so a judge would agree with them. I found my car with red spray paint on it. It said, "Crazy Miser." My credit card wasn't just a weapon for money anymore. It was a tool to destroy my life. The court day was so hard. My hands were shaking when I walked in. I saw David and Jessica. They looked scared, but my lawyer, Arthur, was so calm. He showed the judge everything. The bank statements, the security camera videos from the stores, my phone records proving I was home. My own doctor told the judge that I was mentally fine. He showed everyone that I was not paranoid. My credit card, which they used as a weapon to take my dignity, was now my proof. The truth was on my side. The judge listened to everything. He saw the truth. He said their lawsuit was fake, that it was just a way for them to try and take my money. My hands were shaking, but this time it was from relief. He ordered them to pay back all of the money, the $40,000. He also gave me a restraining order. They couldn't come near me or call me for a whole year. My credit card, which they had used as a weapon, finally became a tool for justice. I had my dignity back. It was a victory, but a sad one. The victory felt so sad. I got all my money back. My dignity was mine again. But I had to walk away from the courthouse knowing I had lost my son. The boy I raised in this house, the one I had held in my armchair, was gone. The man in court was a stranger. My credit card was no longer their weapon, but the fight to get it back cost me everything. My heart was broken. My home felt so heavy and silent without him. I won the battle, but I lost my family. I won the battle, but I lost my family. My home was still so heavy and silent, but then my lawyer, Arthur, kept coming to see me. It wasn't just about legal papers anymore. He was a widower, too. We talked about our pasts, about losing people we loved. He understood my sadness without me having to explain it all. The heavy silence in my home started to lift. My credit card, which was their weapon, was now just a card for my new, peaceful life. I felt a different kind of strength. I was starting a new chapter. Arthur and I got married in a small, simple ceremony. My life is so full now. It's filled with peace and real love. I have my money safe in my own account again. My credit card is no longer a weapon of control. It's just a card. My victory was getting my dignity back. I learned that it's never too late to start over. I lost my son, but I gained a new life, a life built on respect. Every morning I wake up in my own house, in my own life, and I feel so much love.